I'm Mo with Oklahoma Forestry, and you're joining me here today from the Myriad Gardens in Oklahoma City. I always like to come here, even on a hot July day, because you can always find a cool, shady spot right here beneath the trees. And that's exactly why we're here today, to talk about trees. Before we go too far though, let's quickly go over the parts of the tree so we know what we're talking about. Let's step back here. Now, if we start at the very top of the tree, we have the leaves. Exactly! The leaves are a really important part of the tree. That's the green part. And the green part is the part that collects all the sunlight. Coming down from the tree, what connects the leaves to the tree? It's the branches. Very good. Branches hold the leaves. From the branches, we've got this part of the tree that holds the tree up strong and tall. And this part of the tree is called, that's right, it's called the trunk. Very good. Now, the next part of the tree you can't always see, and it comes below the ground and has a very important job of holding the tree up strong and tall. What part of the tree is that? It's the part right underneath called the roots. Very good. Roots are important because it helps the tree absorb all the water and the nutrients from the soil and gives it to the leaves up in the top. We'll talk about how it gets there in a little bit. The last part of the tree I want to mention is the part that covers the entire trunk and all over the branches. What's that part called? It's called the bark. Very good. The bark is super important. You can think of it like a suit of armor for the tree. It protects the tree from insects, from the heat, from fire, all different kinds of things, and it helps the tree stay strong and healthy. Now, if you're joining me at home and you have the opportunity, I want everybody to stand up big and tall for me. And we're going to go over the parts of the tree one more time with our own bodies. So let's start at the top. Everybody put up your big hands and wiggle them for me. Those are your leaves, exactly. And your arms are the branches. Very good, very good. Now this tall, straight part of your body is the trunk. Very good. Now what I want you to do next is I want you to plant yourself in the ground. So plant your feet down, and now you are planted, and wiggle those toes. Your toes are your roots. Very good. So we've got our leaves, branches, trunk, and our roots, and all over the tree is the bark. Now I'm going to teach you one last part of the tree. If you ever color a tree and you just color a big green blob while you're coloring, you may not put all of the details of the leaves and the branches, and that part has got a very special name. I want everybody to imagine that you're a king or a queen, and kings or queens wear something on their head. What do they wear? They wear a crown. I want everybody to put a crown right on top of your head. See that shape we just made with our arms? We just made the top of the tree, and that's called the crown. So now you've learned a new word. It's the crown of the tree. Next, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the inside of the tree to see how everything works. So we're diving a little bit deeper into the inside of the tree to figure out what's exactly going on. Now, I've made a simple diagram here that you can actually make at home. You can see I've got a toilet paper tube, some straws. I have big straws. I have little tiny coffee stirrers, a pencil, and then you may not be able to see too well, but I've got a piece of paper, and then hidden underneath is a rubber band to hold that all together. And what this is showing us is how the tree works. You can imagine the inside of a tree has millions of little straws, and those straws are serving a very important purpose. Before, we talked about the roots and the important thing that the roots did. The roots send water all the way up to the top of the tree to the leaves. The leaves need the water to perform photosynthesis. That's a really big word to say that the tree makes food. The tree is a producer. And we'll talk about some of the things that the tree makes that we use a little bit later. But those straws send the water all the way up, and then once the tree is done making food, there's other little straws that send the extra food back down to the roots to be stored. That way, if the tree needs it on a later date, then the tree has all extra energy stored and ready to use. Now, inside the middle part of the tree is the dead part of the tree. That's the oldest part of the tree. As trees grow, they're actually putting on new cells on the outside of the tree, and the inside part is dead. That is the strongest part of the tree. Next, we're going to talk about why trees are so important. The first thing I want to do, though, is I want you to think about different trees that you could think of. So I want you to put on your thinking caps or your crown if you want to, and I want you to think about different types of trees that you know. Can you name some? Now, you might have thought of the redbud, our state tree. It's got a heart-shaped leaf. It's the first tree that typically blooms in the spring with its purple flowers. You might have thought of a pine tree. Its leaves are needle-shaped and skinny. It has pine cones, and those pine cones are fun to collect in the fall. You might have thought of an oak tree with acorns. Is there anything else that you can think of? Great, those are all really good examples. The next thing I want us to do is I want you to think about what we make from trees. Is there anything in your room? I want you to look around the room that you're in and see if you can find anything wooden. What's something made of wood? Now, if you're watching this at home, I want you to pause your video and I want you to take a second and go find something made of wood and bring it back. Did everybody find something wooden in their house? Now, you might have found a bunch of different things. You could have found a piece of furniture. This is absolutely made from 100% wood, with some screws, obviously. You might have found a toy. This is a toy toaster with some toy bread. That's all made of wood. Did you find a pencil? Most pencils are made from wood. We use those every day. Did you find anything else that you want to tell us about? What do you have? Can we think of some other things that are made from trees that aren't just wood? What about something we use every single day, several times a day? If you guessed toilet paper, you're exactly right. All types of paper are made from trees. So toilet paper is a really important one. What else is made from trees that's paper? Paper bags? The paper that you write on at home or in school? Cardboard and paperboard, so your cereal boxes are made from paper and from a tree. Is there anything else you can think of that's made from paper? Nice. Trees are plants. Not everybody knows that or realizes that, but they are. And plants are producers, which means they produce their own food. And we've already talked about that. That is the process called photosynthesis. Now, have you ever seen a tree at the grocery store going shopping? I haven't either. So they use photosynthesis to make their food. They use the sunlight in the leaves, and then they use the water they got from the roots, and they make their food. And then what's left over is something we use, oxygen. Beautiful. Trees give us oxygen. Is there anything else that trees give us? If you said food, you're exactly right. What are some types of food that trees give us? Anybody think of anything? How about an orange or an apple, a lemon or a lime? Maybe if your grown-ups are with you, they might say some of their favorite tree products are things like pecans and walnuts. What about chocolate? Can you believe that chocolate came from a tree? It's so delicious. Is there anything else that we can get from a tree? Maybe you like pancakes or waffles? What do you put on those pancakes or waffles? Right, we put syrup on it. You can make maple syrup from a maple tree using the sap. People tap into the tree and drain the sap, and then they make a syrup, and it's so delicious. Can you think of anything else that we eat from a tree? Great, those are really good examples. Now, we're not the only animals that eat things from trees. Can you think of some animals that eat things that come from trees? What animals do you typically see hanging out around trees? You see squirrels? Yeah, squirrels and chipmunks. What kind of things do they like to eat? Yeah, they like to eat acorns and pine cones. Underneath this hard exterior are yummy little nuts that the squirrels like to eat. And the acorns have a nice nutty texture right on the inside. And I don't know about you, I've got a pecan tree in my yard, and squirrels love to hide the pecans underneath the ground so that later on they can find them. You know what happens sometimes when they can't find them? That's right, we grow a new tree. Isn't that crazy? What kind of other animals use trees? Can you think of any? Yeah, birds use trees all the time for their nests, right? Anything else? Ants? Great. Ants will always use trees as a spot to burrow through or to climb. You may find them underneath the bark. All different kinds of bugs live there too. Are there any other animals that use trees? Yeah. Some other animals or insects that use trees are bees. They would build their hive in a tree. How about a bear? Have you ever seen a bear near a tree? They like to hang out there, maybe use the bark to scratch their back. What other kind of things would use the tree? Good. Those are all really good examples. Now that we've looked at a model of the tree, we wanted to show you what an actual slice of a tree looked like. You may have gone on a walk or had a tree fall down in your neighborhood and you wanted to look at the tree up close. And when you went to look at it, you might have tried to count the rings. You may know that counting the tree rings can tell you how old a tree is, but it can also tell you a lot of other things too. I've brought my friend Riley, who's a forester with Oklahoma Forestry, to tell us a little bit more about that. Riley, what can you tell us about tree cookies?
Well, I can tell you so many things. So, this is the cross-cut section of a tree. May look like a stump in your neighborhood whenever you see a stump, but sometimes we can take a we can take a cookie from this tree and we can smooth it down. We'll take sandpaper and we'll make it nice and smooth so that we can look at all the rings. And as she just said, 1 year equals 1 ring on a cookie, right? So here we have a nice big tree cookie so that we can see all the detail really easily. If you can come in close here, we'll look and we'll see each one of these rings. And we can count those rings. Each one equals 1 year. Okay? So whenever we look at this, we can see that this tree is right around 40 years old. That's a pretty big tree for only being 40 years old. 40 sounds like a lot, but in tree years, 40 is not very much at all. It's not uncommon for a tree to be several hundred years old. For instance, this tree right here is also about 40 years old. And look at the difference. So this is a different species of tree than this. This grows down by water, so it grows really quickly. This grows in dry places where there's not a lot of water, so it doesn't grow very quickly. That's a big difference in size, even though they're pretty close to the same age, right? So we can go to the very center of this tree and we can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we can do that all the way out to the very edge of the tree, and that will tell us how old this tree is. Some of the other things that we can see inside this tree is we can look at where fire scars. You might be able to see a fire scar, although I don't think there's a fire scar on this particular tree, but if there was, we'd be able to see that, and we would be able to count and tell exactly when that wildfire occurred. We can look right here. We've got some bark. That's called included bark. That's a big word, but that's just where two branches smashed together and got this bark and smashed it in there. So we can look at that and we can tell that this used to be 2 trees right here, or 2 branches maybe, but sometimes it's 2 trees. It's kind of hard to tell right from one cookie. Either way, it was 2 things that grew together. And if you look down here, we can actually see several little trees were right here, and they all grew together into one big tree. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 trees that were all right here when they were very small. And then as they grew and got big, they grew into one. This right here kind of looks like it was another tree, but this is actually what a branch looked like. So this branch was coming off the tree and eventually got swallowed by that tree. So that's a scar from that branch. Over here, we had some sort of a little bit of damage to the tree, maybe from a storm, and then the tree sealed that wound over, and so from the outside we can't tell that there was ever a wound there, but that little wound is always present inside that tree. When Mo was talking earlier about the straws that move nutrients and water up and down in a tree, you might think that the straws are within this whole tree here, but really the straws are just right here on the very outside edge. All of this wood here in the middle is all dead wood. The only part of this tree that's alive is right here between the bark and this dead wood. This dead wood is very hard, dense wood. This is what we make all of our houses out of, our boards, our furniture. Anytime you need a good strong board, it comes out of this right here. All of those nutrients and water and everything are moved up and down this tree by this little bitty strip right around the very edge. No matter how big the tree is, it's just a little bitty strip carrying nutrients up and down that tree.
Well, I really appreciate you guys joining me today while we talked about trees. Before we go, let's go over some of the important things we learned today. Why trees are so important. Can you think of some reasons why trees are so important that we talked about today? Well, the first thing that we talked about is how they give us shade, right? They can cool off the air for us, and they give us something pretty to look at. I love looking at trees. There's so many different kinds and varieties. What else? Trees give us food. We make lots of products out of trees. Trees give animals a place to live, a habitat. It gives us different types of food to eat and the animals food to eat. Can you think of anything else? What's the most important thing that you think we get from trees? Everybody take a deep breath in. What did you just breathe in? You breathe in oxygen, right? Trees give us oxygen when they make their own food. But you may think something else is the most important tree product. What do you think is the most important tree product? If you said toilet paper, we pretty much agree with you too. So next time you use some toilet paper, thank a tree. If you want to learn more about trees, why don't you ask your local librarian to help recommend some books for you? If your grown-ups have a question, have them contact us at Oklahoma Forestry. Thanks for joining us today. We'll see you next time.